Hey, it's Rob here, and today I want to talk to you about the over-servicing epidemic and that one client that is always asking you for just a little bit more. Now, there are a few steps that you can take to get this right from the start, and by the end of this short tutorial, I want to outline a few steps that you can take. So I'm Rob, I'm a business coach and I work with agencies, and I've worked with hundreds of agencies over the last 13 years, and I've seen the good, the bad and the ugly around over-servicing. I've seen agencies that tell me 100 excuses of why the ideas I'm saying won't work, but the reality of it is, it's true for every agency, including yours, that if you get a few things right at the beginning of a relationship with a client, then you can have a much more respectful partner-partner kind of relationship that will result in you charging a fair fee and delivering a fair service for that fee. So let's go right back to the beginning. Getting this right starts from the very first conversation that you have with your client. And if you watched my previous video on the sales funnel, you'll know that I talked about the importance of building a very consultative relationship with your clients from day one, so that you end up with this partner-partner relationship rather than the imbalanced customer-supplier relationship. So we need to be really clear with our client around what their expectations are, what they're trying to achieve from the campaign, the retainer, whatever it is that you're delivering for them. So you need to make sure that you have a really strong briefing process, and that this process includes exactly what you will be delivering for the client and the outcomes and the impact of that. So if we can talk about in a brief exactly what we're delivering, then we can also talk about what we're not delivering, and we can then have an ability to refer back to that later on and price up those additional services. Also, if we talk about selling value rather than time, so this is focusing on outcomes and impacts that you'll have for your client rather than the inputs and the outputs. So let me just quickly explain that. So inputs are the things that you will need to deliver a particular project. So this will be people, resources, software, information from the client, and so on. The outputs are the things that you deliver to clients. The outputs might be the initial web designs, the initial copy, the ideas for a campaign. But when you think about it, the client isn't really buying those things. Those are the things that you need to do internally. But when we're selling, we need to focus on the outcomes and the impact. And the outcomes are what are the changes it's going to make for your client. So this could be things like an improved brand that will ultimately help you gain more market share. It could be a much better copy that really resonates with your target customer and therefore helps increase sales. So those are the things that we are really selling to our client. And if we get those right in our briefing process, then it gives us the ability to say this is how much it costs for those things. Now, when you have that one demanding client that then is asking you for more, you can refer back to the brief and say, well, which part of the current value that we've agreed to deliver for this fee do you want me to take out so that I can deliver this additional thing? And of course they're likely to say, well, no, I don't want you to stop delivering any of that value. And in that case you can say, well, okay, if you want this additional service, it's an additional fee. Now, the other thing I tell a lot of my clients is try and negotiate a contingency pot of money. So this is maybe 10% of the overall fee that the client puts into a pot and makes available if they ask for additional services. So the agreement you have with them at the beginning is, well, we'll call on this pot of money if you ask for anything additional, but if you don't, then we won't use that pot of money. And I suggest that you try and negotiate 10 to 15% for this contingency pot. So those are a few ideas around stopping that over-servicing epidemic. Now, once you've got that brief right and you've agreed the service level with your client, you need to communicate this internally to your team if you have one. So that is making sure that your team understand what's being delivered, making sure your team understands that you have this contingency pot if you do have it, so that they just don't say yes to a client. Because we all know when we get that demanding client on the phone and they're asking us for the additional service, well, of course we want to please them, so we say yes. But if your staff aren't clear about what's included and what's not included, then of course they're naturally going to say yes, but you actually want to equip them with the skills to say no if they need to be able to say no. So the other thing I just alluded to there is creating this service level with your client. And what I mean by that is making sure they understand what reasonable expectations in terms of response times are. Because if a client phones you up and you always respond, or a client sends you an email and you immediately respond to that, then you are setting that service level for them to expect you to always immediately respond. And then of course the time you can't immediately respond, they're disappointed. So we need to create this concept of a service level within our agency and with the client, so they understand that actually, you know, for the fee they're paying, you'll get back to them within say a 3-hour timescale. And then you just make sure that your team understands this, and that you sometimes don't get back to them until 3 hours, so that you are delivering that service level which is commensurate with the fee that they're paying you. And that's another way of stopping over servicing. So let me just recap a few of the points that I've made in this short tutorial. First of all, we need to make sure we have this consultative partnership relationship with our clients that is based on respect. Second of all, we need to get very clear at the very beginning about what is included in the campaign or the retainer or the project and what isn't included. And we focus on outcomes and impacts to help set that up. The third thing we need to do is get clear on our service levels so that the client has a reasonable expectation about what will be delivered and when you will respond to them. And you need to communicate all of this back to your team. And lastly, try this idea of creating a contingency pot of money so that if the client does ask for additional services, you can say that's fine, we'll call on the contingency pot. So anyway, there's 4 tips from me. I hope that you found this short tutorial useful. So if you've enjoyed this video, please click on the link below to subscribe to be the first to hear about the latest new videos that I'll be posting periodically. Also, please share this video with your colleagues, and if you look in the links below, there's a number of free ebook downloads that are connected to this topic that you can go and access.